Ladies and gentlemen, this is no drill, it is bowling time. After spending nearly a year and a half riding the Suns bench, seemingly out of nowhere, the Phoenix Suns are finally starting Bol Bol. For a franchise that has spent an entire year underperforming, they needed change, and change may have just arrived. Because the Suns just gave the former second round pick his shot. For a guy who's been averaging just 11 minutes per game, he's been up to 30 minutes per game in Phoenix's last 4 games, and he's been showing out because of it. Bol is averaging 16 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game on a 53% true shooting percentage. This is a team that has struggled when it comes to star power not named Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They have struggled due to their depth, they have struggled due to their injuries. They needed something new, and they definitely weren't going to be able to get it through trades, draft, or free agency, and Bol Bol might just be that. He might just be this team's X factor to possibly turn around this season. Because of the attention he is getting both nationally and finally from the Suns coaching staff, I decided to take a look at every single play that Bol Bol was involved in, and here is what I found. First off, I really like Bol Bol as a catch and shoot shooter. He has a great release point, releasing it very high up, overall a very solid form, and typically his shot selection hasn't been too bad, although he does take a lot of 3-pointers. He generally also does a pretty good job of navigating into open space just by taking a few steps to make sure he always gets himself for an open shot, but when you're 7'3", you are pretty hard to contest. What really surprises me with Bol Bol is he seems almost Kevin Durant-like from the mid-range and has shown an ability to pull up or shoot off the handoff, which you add in a 7'3" frame, that is absolutely ridiculous and impossible to guard, and he shoots these at a pretty efficient rate too. And confidence is certainly something that is not lacking for Bol Bol, especially for a crowd like Phoenix that absolutely loves the man. Although, like I said, he's been taking a lot of 3-pointers, and over this 4-game stretch, he's been shooting less than 30% on nearly 8 attempts per game. For a guy who shot nearly 44% last year on 1.5 attempts per game, we have seen clearly a huge increase in his confidence, and he has that green light from Phoenix because a 7'3" player shooting 8 threes per game does not happen by accident. For more reference, he has shot more 3-pointers over the last 4 games of his career than he did in his entire rookie season. But 8 attempts is probably too many 3-pointers for Bol to be taking. Wait. No, it's definitely way too many 3-pointers for Bol to be taking. But what I really do like that I've been seeing from him is his mid-range scoring. In his last 4 games, he has gone about 5 of 8 from the mid-range area, but last year he shot even better. In the last 4 games he's played, he has shot about 5 of 8 from mid-range, but for the entire season, he is a 70% mid-range shooter. Bol Bol is a pretty good shooter, especially when you factor in his size. The crowd probably gets to him, and he has probably too much of a green light to be taking the threes that he does, but he did shoot 44% last year, and like I said, he clearly has the ability to make mid-range shots. Even if he can't be as efficient from 3 as someone like Victor Wembanyama, who shoots around 35% on the year, I think Bol taking these kinds of shots is crucial for the Suns offense, and it opens him up as a scoring threat, something this Phoenix team desperately needs. Bol Bol also has great touch when it comes to being around the rim. The 7'3" former Oregon center is an 87% shooter at the restricted arc, and I know what you're thinking, well duh, of course he is, he's 7'3". But it's not exactly how you think. Bol Bol's low game is not actually just about being taller than you, it's about having probably the best floater that I've ever seen on somebody at that size. And that's probably because most people at that size don't really attempt a lot of floaters. On a slightly larger sample size, last year Bol Bol was a 90% shooter at the restricted arc and a near 75% shooter from the paint. 32 attempts at the restricted arc isn't a lot, but he is averaging more missed 3-pointers per game this year. Sorry, just over this stretch than he did all of last season. His 2-point percentage of 68% would be good for 6th in the entire NBA, and last year he shot 71% from 2, which would put him as 2nd in the entire NBA. Now, is his scoring volume incredibly small? Absolutely. And does Bol Bol take too many 3-pointers for what his skill set and what his size is? You bet it. But that doesn't change the fact that from within the arc, Bol Bol is probably one of the most efficient players in the league. At the very least, he has demonstrated that efficiency in his small sample size, which means he should probably be getting more minutes to show off what he is truly capable of, because I want to know if this is a fluke or if he is really that good when it comes to shooting within the free throw line. And the Phoenix Suns, barely even being a playoff team right now, have nothing to lose by giving Bol more opportunities. But for what I did like from him, there were also some parts of his offensive game that I did not like. First off is his screening, or really lack thereof. I have never seen somebody as big as Bol Bol be used explicitly as a catch and shoot kind of player. If you look back at most of his games, most of his points come from either a catch and shoot chance, a drive, or a putback. And honestly, he doesn't even cut super well. I think there's a lot of room for potential there. But even Chris Paul sets more screen assists per game than Bol Bol. Chris Paul, this is just baffling to me. Last year, Bol Bol got a screen assist just once out of every 3 games. Yes, Chris Paul does it at a rate higher than that. And I don't know if this is exactly a coaching thing or a Bol Bol thing, but one thing's for certain, I definitely think he should be used more, because when you have a guy who is 7'3" with great touch and a great floater, he's gonna be hard to guard in the pick and roll. But when he's also a good mid-range shooter with a high release point that can even shoot the 3, he could be used pretty well in a pick and fade as well. And Bol Bol's also a pretty decent passer. We've seen that basically since his high school days. I do think he can be a bit of a ball hog, or like I said, he takes the shots that he shouldn't be taking, but I still think he is a capable passer. But flashing back to the pick and roll, those 0.3 pick and roll opportunities, so basically 1 every 3 games, he was in the 99th percentile according to points per possession from NBA.com. So in the very few times that Bol Bol ran a pick and roll, he was one of the most efficient players in the NBA when it comes to it. Like with the shooting, I don't know if Bol Bol is actually that elite at it, but in the small sample size we've seen, he certainly should be doing that a lot more. And we certainly should not be seeing a 7'3" player just sit there on the perimeter waiting for a ball to come off of a drive and kick opportunity. That is just not going to be the most efficient use of his talents. Bol Bol, I think, has the offensive talent. He has one of the most unique skill sets. He is still a unicorn. He just may be a unicorn that never even got a chance to reach his potential. Some of that I think is coaching, some of that might have been because of his injuries he's had in the past, but I also think some of that might just be from Bol Bol's own mental limitations. Now, Bol Bol is a positive defender for the Suns, and Phoenix does not have a lot of positive defenders. They're the 3rd worst defense in the league, and their defense gets better by about 5 points per 100 possessions with Bol Bol on the court. So why would I call him a not great defender? To me, it's pretty simple. Bol Bol is a positive defender, and honestly, he is a good defender because of his athleticism, not because of his positioning. There are plenty of times where Bol Bol is either in too aggressive of a position, not aggressive enough, or doesn't rotate properly on defense. Now, he can make the plays and he can block a shot because he actually has great hands. He has great hand-eye coordination, especially for someone at that size. He can deflect a pass well, he can rise up and block a shot well. He's a great shot blocker, but being a good shot blocker doesn't always mean that you're a super good defender. Shout out Hassan Whiteside. Like I said, he's a positive defender and he is a good defender. I don't want you to think that I am not saying that, but I do think that his positioning is sorely lacking a lot of times. And that is the difference between him being a good defender and him being an elite defender. And if you've watched Phoenix this season, they don't have a lot of elite defenders, especially not guys who are big. They don't have a lot of good defending centers. This has been an issue for them for a while, so this is where Bol Bol can come in and he can fill that gap, and that can also give him serious playing time. And defensively, there's also 2 other things that I've noticed in this last stretch of games that Bol Bol tends to struggle with. First is his on-ball defense. Now, of course, you could say a 7'3" player is not going to be a good on-ball perimeter defender. But you could also argue that a player that only weighs 220 pounds and someone who is athletic as Bol Bol, because he is not a slow player, he's not unathletic, but he does struggle on the perimeter. He has some pretty slow foot speed, he isn't exactly the fastest laterally, and he's a guy that you can either dribble past pretty quickly or get a step back on, and if you get it over him, you can still get a pretty good shot. I'm not expecting Bol Bol to be the kind of guy who can guard 1 through 5, but Bol Bol and basically his archetype of player, this unicorn that we've rarely seen in NBA history, typically you would expect him to be slightly better on the perimeter in NBA history compared to other centers. Currently, I just have not seen him be a good perimeter defender just yet, but I do think he has the potential to be a good perimeter defender. The other thing that we've seen Bol Bol struggle with though is his transition defense, something that is incredibly disappointing because that's purely just an effort thing, especially when you have the athleticism that Bol Bol does. There are quite a few times where he fails to get back on defense, and this either gives up a bucket or it gives up his positioning, which for someone who struggles with positioning, bad transition defense is certainly a part of that. All in all, Bol Bol's issues could be so much worse. The way that I look at it is everything is a lack of either experience, coaching, or effort. 3 things that can all be corrected. I don't know if they will be corrected, but it's definitely possible to be corrected. He has the ability to shoot. He has the ability to dribble and pass for someone at his size. He has the ability to be a great shot blocker, and he has so much potential to be an elite defender. Maybe not as good as Wemby, but man, does he certainly share a lot of parts of his toolkit. Bol Bol's kind of in a weird situation because he was a part of that ball is life era and that era where we really saw high school players blow up. So he feels like he's been in the spotlight forever. In reality, Bol Bol is only 25 years old. He only played 9 games in college before having a foot fracture that made him miss his entire season, and he's only played about a season and a half to 2 seasons worth of games in the NBA. Meaning, since he's been in the spotlight, we haven't really seen a whole lot of Bol Bol due to coaching, due to injuries, due to whatever issue. So even though he's just 25 years old, he's a 25-year-old that just doesn't have a lot of basketball experience, meaning that there is still a lot of room for him to grow, in my opinion, because he just doesn't have as much experience as you would see for the average 25-year-old player. Unfortunately, Bol Bol's effort and potential has been called into question since his days at Oregon and even some of his days back in high school. And if he can't work to be what he is capable of, he might just be another player that was given the talent and given the potential and just never worked to make it work. Bol Bol is without a doubt one of the most unique prospects in NBA history and a guy who certainly has deserved more playing time than what he's received. He is a former second-round pick that has spent the majority of his career riding the bench, but now it seems like the Suns are finally giving him the opportunity to do more than that, and he has been living up to it. He's been a positive player over the last 4 games. He's got the touch, he's got the finishing ability, he's got the shooting ability from mid-range and even beyond. He can pass, he can dribble, he's got good hand-eye coordination, he's a good shot blocker, he's got athleticism. He has the ability to be a positive defender even on the perimeter because, like I said, he is already a net positive down low. He has the ability to produce and, in my opinion, can be a difference maker for this Phoenix Suns team. Now, I don't know if he can completely turn them around because this team does have so many issues. Switching to Bol Bol and giving him the minutes and the opportunities that he deserves, that could just be the start of a different Phoenix team that we saw before the All-Star break, because these kind of turnarounds do happen. But the big question is, can he be an X factor? Can he turn this season around? And there's only going to be one way to find out. It's going to be, how does Phoenix come out post All-Star break? How does Bol Bol come out post All-Star break? Is he coachable? Does he make the adjustments that's necessary? Is he able to gain the experience that he needs? Because I think a lot of his shortcomings are just because of a lack of experience, something that's fixable if he wants it to be fixable. We know guys like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and maybe like Tyus Jones and even Bradley Beal, we know what they're going to be capable of for the rest of the season. What will Bol Bol be capable of for the rest of the season? Is this 4-game stretch a fluke, or is this what he truly is? There's only one way to find out, and that's because, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go bowling. If you like this video, you know what to do. Here's my analysis of the better version of Bol Bol, the breakout of Victor Wembanyama. But that is it for this one, and I will catch you all later.